What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are here at Lake Julian Disc Golf Course for another Formwork Friday, and we are about to go into the woods. Let's go see if we can miss some trees. Now, there's a couple of different types of scramble shots, and that's what we're really trying to focus on is the main two, and those are going to be the patent pending backhand and the flex forehand. Normally, when I am throwing from in the woods, I'm trying to get into the most open area possible. So scramble shots are not necessarily about what you're able to do and what you're able to throw, but most of scrambling is actually what you're able to see. And because I threw so many anhydrous for so long, I see disc golf in a different light, and I actually see different lines. For instance, you've got right here, we're stuck up against some trees, but we're trying to go that way. You could do the patent pending backhand and step out here and try to put it where it needs to be. And that's where I would probably traditionally go. The main thing about this is because you're basically throwing a standstill, you need something that's a little bit straighter and a little bit further flying, something with a lot of glide, because you're not going to be able to throw it quite as hard. So, reaching for my understable mid. From this distance, I might even throw putter, but for the purposes of today, I just have a couple of discs. Take my understable mid-range and throw it soft, but make sure I'm spinning it and trying to hit the line I need to be on. There's your patent pending backhand. Now from the same spot though, there is another type of throw that can get you out of the same situation without looking away from the target. And that is one of the throws that I didn't actually say earlier, and that's the tomahawk. You can throw a tomahawk from here. The way I throw tomahawks is different than the way that most people throw tomahawks. Most people are throwing their drivers and trying to get a lot of distance on their tomahawks to get all the way up there. And you can do that, but actually it shapes differently from my tomahawk. Because when you throw a tomahawk, you're using a forehand grip, you're throwing it like this, and the driver is going to cut through the air and then drop to the ground. So you're going to get this flight, and most people are throwing the same discs on a thumber, they're gonna go this way. I actually go a little bit slower of a disc, and I go either putter or mid-range and go on the overstable side, because I'm gonna throw it basically like this. And guess what's gonna happen? It's not going to pan and then drop, it's actually just going to pan and land flat and safe. And since you're landing on the flight plate of the disc, you're gonna get a really good slide wherever you need to be. And so in wooded conditions, wooded fairways, sometimes it's really helpful to be able to just throw something and it land and then slide straight. That was a pyro, so it's not super overstable. This is a Zone OS. Let's see if I can get the same type of idea with this stick. So the more overstable you throw, the more angle you're gonna have to put on the disc. If it's kind of a neutral stability or kind of neutral to overstable, like the pyro, it's not beefy, it's neutral to overstable. You don't have to put as much angle on it. Whereas with something like the Zone OS or this Mutant, I'm gonna have to get it about here on the release for it to have a chance of panning out. The reason I throw tomahawks sometimes instead of patent pending backhands is I feel my brain does something weird. It tells me that I have to throw it harder to make it go as far. So instead of just doing what I told you to do and just grab a glidey disc and spinning it, I try to throw too hard, so I tend to grip lock them. However, with a tomahawk, I can face what I'm looking at, similar to a forehand, and I can just throw it exactly where I want it. And as long as I choose the right disc and the right release angle, it's going to turn out pretty good. So that's what happens if you're on the right side of the fairway. You have the tomahawk option to pan down the fairway, land flat, slide up under the basket. You also have that patent pending, step out, basically throw behind you. And then of course this is all right hand player. If you're left-handed, it's going to be the exact opposite. So what happens if you're, as a right-handed player, on the left side of the fairway? Right here we basically have two options of what we can do that are going to be good options. You can try to get super touchy and do some kind of flip up whatever and throw super straight, or I mean, there's always ways to get around this if you're really good. But if you want to have reliability and to be able to make something close to the basket, if I'm tucked up behind these trees, I have two options. I'm not good enough at throwing that little hyzer flip stand-up shot so that I can throw the hyzer and just stand up right into the chains. I have a backhand skip shot, and I have a forehand turnover. It's not really a turnover, it's more of just a forehand and hyzer. And with either the Mutant or the Zone OS, I have the ability to, if you throw it on extreme amounts of angle, it wants to hyzer. So it wants to get to here. So if you throw it like this, it's going to keep fighting to get to there the entirety of its flight. So I actually use this a good bit with the Mutant, with the Zone OS. You throw it basically straight up and down, and it pans right over to where you want it to be. What you're trying to do there is aim at the right wall of trees. You're throwing it so extremely steep of an angle that it's going to pull itself off of those trees. I need to throw that a little bit harder. Let's do it with the pyro instead. See that shot? I do that actually a lot, where you just real steep angle and just pop it. You're not getting a whole lot of distance. You're just trying to get close. I threw all the overstable discs, so I don't know if I can do the skip shot, but I'm going to try it with the peach here. Instead of going high and just let it pan, you're throwing it real low, maybe a touch nose up, because you want to make sure that it goes straight at the ground, but then it hits with that nose up angle and it's going to skip. So far we've had 4 different scramble shots with varied amounts of success. I don't throw the Zone OS very much, and it shows. Yeah, it's kind of the idea. When you're in the woods, look for different shots, look for different lines. I'm about to put us into a spot where you kind of have to look for other lines, because if you're trying to throw a normal shot from in there, it won't go anywhere. It's not going to work. You might be able to see the basket. It's right in between these 2 trees. We hyzered out. We're way over here. We don't really have any good options because there's stuff right in the way. There's a high backhand window if I were to try to go far left, but I'd have to patent pending, and I don't have that much confidence with hitting exactly where I want from the patent pending. So what am I gonna do? It's right here. So it's not always going to be just throw it up in the air and hope. Sometimes you are actively trying to throw it right next to the basket or even in, and the what I'm trying to do there is figure out exactly the placement where the basket is, and then just draw the arc back. So what angle do I need to release it on for it to arc right in there? And I've actually had chain outs from the left side of the fairway, literally throwing around the corner and chaining out on certain baskets. It works, it makes a difference, and just having one or two little scramble shots in your tips and tricks, it makes a huge difference. Just whoop, right on there. Let's go see if we can put ourselves in another really tight spot. So, hole 17 has a lot of places where you can get some really tricky, nasty spots. Sometimes you'll hit a tree and kick way over here to the right, or you'll just grip block your drive and you'll end up way over here. What are we gonna do? Zona West Tomahawk. You get out, you get way down the fairway, and you have a chance for a jump putt. And I have seen kicks get real bad, where you actually end up on the right side of all the trees. This grass is way too high up for you to be able to throw a good backhand hyzer. You're gonna put your hand through the grasses, and this is sawgrass. It will literally rip your skin up. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna take a slight step back, give myself some distance from the sawgrass, and then just try to throw this on a forehand, this mutant on a forehand, basically straight up and down, and watch it pan left. Okay, well, that was too much angle. Let's try the pyro. Yeah, somewhere in between those two. Guess what else is in this grass? There's a lot of greenbriers, and I just stepped right into one. Let's go to the other side of the fairway and see what happens. So from being over here, I mean, you have options, but look at all those really tight trees. All the gaps are 1.5 feet, 2 feet wide, and they're really low. So you have to try to sneak through all of those. Or there's a big old wide open fairway in the sky. Let's throw at that one. And I'm actually gonna throw the peach, because you just want something that's going to hold that turnover. And I know with those other discs, if I put them on the angle, they'll kind of pan into it. The peach is understable enough, it should just kind of turn on its own. So I have to just kind of throw it flattish, and it should drift me over to the left. I mean, it was going, and then there was a tree. I found this hex. Let's see if it does the same thing. Yeah, I was throwing them just like a foot and a half too high, but you get the idea, right? You throw it on that angle, and it's going to pan over. And if you watch last week's video about the forehand anhizers, or not last week's, 2 weeks ago videos, forehand anhyzer, commit to the line, follow through on the line, and it'll go pretty good. Also throwing on those steep anhyzer panning shots that give you the ability to get out away from everything that's on the ground, because there's a lot more airspace in the air, and you're gonna get more distance if you can keep it in the air. So put them on that steep anhyzer and make sure you give them plenty of height so that they have a chance to do what you want them to do. So the same idea with this shot here. You fade it out too much on 18. We're trying to push up into the woods. You can throw a backhand hyzer. It works. You even have the space. But what you're not counting on are all the trees. And that's where throwing something on a steep anhyzer on a forehand angle could actually help, because that steep anhyzer forehand angle is going to make it turn directly out of your hand. So it's going to be coming basically on the inside line. It's flattening out to straight. Instead of going straight and then fading, it's getting the fade first, and then it's just staying on that angle as it's flattening out towards the basket. So from this spot, I actually do throw this exact same shot with a mutant. So here I'm aiming at the biggest pine tree on the right, or the second tree in. because that'll keep me out away from the gap, and then as it anhyzers in, it's going to find that gap. That should be putting. Let's see if we can do the same thing with the Zone OS. May not go as far. That might have hit my car. And now the pyro. See how it shapes that gap a lot easier? Gaps are much easier to hit if you're on an angle when you hit them. This gap is far easier to hit on an anhyzer than it is on a hyzer. And now let's throw the peach just for fun. How beautiful is that? Try out some anhyzer forehands, work them into your scramble game, maybe even throw some tomahawks, throw some patent pendings. It's a lot of fun to play around with different types of shots, even when it's not super comfortable for you. But yeah, I challenge every one of you to go and park a basket with a Sky anhyzer forehand. It's worth trying out, or maybe even a tomahawk. Try to park it with a tomahawk. It's so much fun to go out and try these different shots, especially if you try them out in your practice rounds and then you go to play a pickup game with friends and they're like, where did that shot come from? That was amazing. Try that out. If you enjoy content like this, please make sure to like the video. If you want to see something new, make sure to comment all that down below, and make sure to subscribe for the subscriber only giveaways. It definitely helps me out. Until next time, see you out on the course.